Hello, and welcome to another chapter of the Duel Links archives. Today we will talk about the history of FTK decks in Duel Links. FTK, acronym of First Turn Kill, means a strategy where you aim to kill your opponent on turn 1 before they even get the chance to play. This is obviously a very obnoxious strategy, as the point of the game is the interactions between the two players, and in this video we will see about the history of this strategy in Duel Links. Now, it is impossible to talk about every FTK deck ever, as there are so many ever, but not so many that were successful, and even fewer that were successful enough to earn a spot on the ban list. And these are the ones we will talk about today. But first, we quickly need to talk about two things. First, in Duel Links, we only start with 4000 life points, making it much easier to burn your opponent to death with card effects. Second, in Duel Links, the minimum size of a decklist is 20 cards instead of the 40 of the TCG formats, making strategies that do need a specific card much more consistent. And without further ado, let us start. Number 1. Woodland Sprite FTK. The first FTK deck that was actually good enough was the Woodland Sprite FTK. Released in December 2016 in the box Neo Impact, Woodland Sprite is a plant type monster with the following effect. Send one equipped card equipped to this card to the graveyard, inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent's life points. This effect is not once per turn, so as long as you have equipped cards to send, you can burn your opponent indefinitely. This card didn't really see any success for a while though, it only started doing well a year later. On the 31st of December 2017, Konami released the box Primal Burst, and with this box came the Bamboo Sword engine. Broken Bamboo Sword is an equipped spell that gives the equipped monster 0 attack. Cursed Bamboo Sword is an equipped spell that gives the equipped monster 0 attack as well, but has the extra benefit of being able to search another Bamboo Sword card if it is sent to the graveyard, and this effect is not once per turn. And finally, Golden Bamboo Sword is a normal spell card that draws you 2 cards if you controlled another Bamboo Sword card face up on the field. It was the perfect match for Woodland Sprite, as if you had equipped the Cursed Bamboo Sword to Woodland Sprite, you could activate the effect of Woodland Sprite, sending the Cursed Bamboo Sword to burn your opponent while searching for either the Broken Bamboo Sword or the Golden Bamboo Sword. The final piece of the puzzle was the card Black Pendant, an equipped spell card that gives the equipped monster 500 attack and had the added effect of inflicting 500 damage to your opponent if it was sent to the graveyard, meaning 1000 damage in total if you sent it by Woodland Sprite's effect. And to top it off, we had a really good skill to go with it. Taya Gardner had a skill called Duel Standby, which made each player start with an additional card, starting with 5 instead of 4. This, plus the fact that Duel Links' minimum deck size is 20 cards, and access to a generic draw card like Into the Void, made this strategy much more consistent than it should have been. The deck got hit on the ban list in January 2018, where Woodland Sprite got limited to 1 to reduce the consistency of the deck, but it was not enough to stop the deck entirely, as all you needed was 1 Woodland Sprite to FTK. 2 weeks later, in February 2018, Konami also limited Golden Bamboo Sword to 1, making these strategies unplayable together, and that was the end of the Woodland Sprite FTK. Number 2. Gem Knight FTK. Gem Knight is a deck that first got released in the box Primal Burst, just like the Bamboo Sword engine. They didn't have a lot of good cards, but they had Gem Knight Master Diamond, a key part of the upcoming FTK. Few months later, in July 2018, we got the main box Burning Nova. In this box we got a lot of support for the Gem Knight archetype, including the main culprit of the FTK, Lady Lapis Lazuli. This card has the effect of burning your opponent for 500 points of damage per special summon monster on the field. If you manage to activate this effect 3 times with 3 special summon monster, you are able to inflict enough damage to prevent your opponent from even playing the game. But Lady Lapis Lazuli can only be special summoned once per turn, making this in theory impossible to pull off. And that's where Master Diamond comes into play. Gem Knight Master Diamond has the effect of banishing a level 7 or lower Gem Knight fusion monster from your graveyard to copy its effect until the end of the turn. And that effect was not a hard once per turn, meaning that as long as you could fusion summon for Master Diamond, while cycling your Lady Lapis Lazuli, you could FTK your opponent. Now that we saw the burning tools of the deck, let's focus on the enablers of the strategy. In addition to Lady Lapis Lazuli, we got several tools in the box Burning Nova, the most important one being Gem Knight Fusion. This spell card allows you to fusion summon a Gem Knight monster like in normal polymerization, but has the added effect of being able to recover itself from your graveyard by banishing a Gem Knight monster, and this effect was not a hard once per turn, meaning you could infinitely recover your fusion as long as you have Gem Knight's monster to banish in your graveyard. This was done thanks to the card That Grass Looks Greener, that allows you to send cards from the top of your deck to your graveyard so that your deck size equals the one of your opponent. This allowed you to fuel your graveyard with Gem Knights, as well as a potential Gem Knight fusion if you didn't open it. And the last few cards that we got in this box that were enablers for this FTK were Gem Knight Lazuli, Gem Knight Iolite, and Gem Knight Obsidian, which all act as recovery tools to add back fusion materials to your hand. And finally, Lady Brilliant Diamond, which allows you to tribute a monster to special summon a Gem Knight from your extra deck, greatly facilitating the summon of Master Diamond. Yet the deck was still not able to FTK consistently. It is only a year later that the deck got its glory time. In June 2019, Konami released the box Guardians of Rock, and in this box we got the final piece of the Gem Knight FTK strategy. That final piece was Block Dragon. Block Dragon is a rock monster that has the ability to special summon itself from either your hand or graveyard by banishing 3 Earth monsters from your hand or graveyard. This effect was not once per turn, and the fact that Block Dragon is a rock monster meant it could be used as a fusion material for Gem Knight Zirconia. But the true power of Block Dragon is the second effect. When Block Dragon is sent from field to the graveyard in any way, you can add up to 3 rock monsters from your deck to your hand, as long as the added level of all these monsters was exactly 8. This allowed you to search more fusion materials and more recovery cards that you would ever need. And to top it off, the deck used the skill Spell Specialist, a skill that greatly enhances your chance of opening with a spell card in your opening hand, making opening with grass or fusion basically guaranteed. All of this form a well-oiled machine capable of killing your opponent on the first turn. That was the Gem Knight FTK. The deck was quickly nerfed though, as barely 1 month later, in the ban list of July 2019, Lady Lapis Lazuli was limited to 1, making using its effect 3 times per turn really hard. It was still possible thanks to the card Gem Knight Ember that could recycle your Lady Lapis Lazuli, but it was way too inconsistent to be a viable strategy, and the deck just fell off from there. Number 3. Fortune Lady's FTK. The next FTK that would be good enough to get Konami's attention was the Fortune Lady FTK. This FTK was allowed because of the incredible draw power that Fortune Ladies had. Fortune Ladies first came out in August 2019, with the release of both Dark Signer Carly Carmine and the box Valhalla Calling. The basic combo that would draw you a ton of cards was the combo of either Fortune Lady Past or Fortune Lady Light plus Fortune Lady Calling. You would summon from your deck the one you didn't have on the field, then activate Past, boosting its level by 1 and banishing Light, allowing you to special summon Fortune Lady Water from your deck. And on summon, Fortune Lady Water would draw you 2 cards because you controlled another Fortune Lady monster. And this effect was not once per turn, meaning you could reuse it as long as you summon water alongside another Fortune Lady monster. That's where the key part of this FTK comes into play. Desynchro is a normal spell card that allows you to return a synchro monster to the extra deck to special summon the monsters used as material from your graveyard. Now you might see where this is going. You would resummon water and past to activate water again. This basically meant that each activation of your Desynchro was part of greed. The first monster you would summon was Stardust Charge Warrior to draw an additional card on summon, and all this deck digging was meant to get you the spell card Dragon Gunfire. It's a normal spell card that allows you to burn your opponent for 800 points of damage if you control a dragon type monster. That means that if you got to activate this card 5 times, you could FTK your opponent. But since we can only use 3 copies of the same card in the deck, the last 2 were recycled thanks to cards like Part of Benevolence or Magical Stone Excavation. The dragon type monster of choice was Samsara, Dragon of Rebirth, who just happens to be a generic level 5 dragon type synchro monster. However, that FTK was not really consistent until December 2019, with the rerun of the Carly Carmine event. In this event, we got the card Fortune's Future, that could return your banished Fortune Lady Light to the graveyard to draw 2 cards, allowing you to search the final 2 gunfires you return to your deck with Part of Benevolence. That was the Fortune Lady FTK. However, unlike the previous 2, this one was purely a ladder FTK, basically never seeing any success in competitive play. But this was good enough of an FTK to warrant a hit on the ban list. In May 2020, Konami limited Desynchro to 1, making this FTK dead as you basically lost 2 copies of Pot of Greed, making it much less consistent. Number 4. Tachyon Dragon FTK. Oh yeah, Remember the deck from my last video? The one that was tier 0 because of oppressive turn 1 boards, turn 2 OTKs and never-ending grind game? Well, guess what? It could FTK as well. Yeah, I know, that's crazy. This final section of the video will be a sort of follow-up to my previous video's section on Tachyon, as we are going to talk about the FTK part of this deck. And because I talked a lot about this deck in my previous video, I'm not going to talk about the basics of the deck so much. So if you want to see the basic functioning of this deck, I suggest you watch my previous video on tier 0 decks in Duel Links. Tachyon FTK fully used the fact that Tachyon was a rank 8 spam strategy and utilized cards like Trading to draw 2 by discarding 1 and the Xyz monster Coach King Giant Trainer to draw 3 more cards from your deck. The next part of the FTK was the card Vengeful Servant, an equipped spell card that would burn your opponent for half of the equipped monster's attack if control of the monster changed. So if you had 2 equipped to a 4000 attack full armor Photon Dragon that the deck could do very easily, again by being a rank 8 spam strategy, and gave control of your dragon to your opponent thanks to the card Xian Spy, that would be exactly 4000 points of damage, killing your opponent before they could even play. And the best part of this FTK was that you only needed to run 3 quote-unquote bad cards in your deck to make the FTK work. If you couldn't FTK, you would just do the normal Tachyon end board and still end up in a really comfortable position. That's one of the reasons Tachyon was such a powerful deck. It could do everything. This FTK was killed during the same ban list that limited Coach King Giant Trainer by limiting both Vengeful Servant as well as limiting Xian Spy, making sure this kind of FTK would never happen again. And that's it for this chapter of the Duel Links archives. If we learned anything today by seeing about these decks, is that once per turns are important to this game. I hope you liked this chapter on the FTK decks that were good enough to attract Konami's attention. If you liked this video and want to see more of this kind of content, please let me know. In the meantime, have a good rest of your day and see you another day for another chapter.